welcome back to this episode of Geography Girl. Today I want to be talking to you about Brasila, which is the capital of Brazil. And this is because it went through a massive redevelopment in the 1960s. And this is because it's one of those cities that was literally built from the ground up. And just like you see in places like Dubai or Saudi Arabia, it is a government-led mega project that is about bringing to life a vision of modernity, which is like the manifestation of what their vision of modernity is. So I love looking at these types of cities because you can really see what the cultural and like political vision is. So Brasila was built at a record speed in Brazil's interior, and it was a city really built on the principles of optimism and modernity. But decades on, the city's legacy and its meaning raises a question. Did the utopian dream really succeed, or has Brasila become something else altogether? Brasila is the capital of Brazil. It has never quite become the same cultural symbol as Rio de Janeiro, its long and lovely beaches, or Sao Paulo as an art or cultural hub has. It has become one of the boldest experiments of the 20th century. It was literally built from scratch in the space of 5 years, and was intended to showcase Brazil as a global forward-thinking power. Architectural Digest tells us it is celebrated as one of the most impressive projects of the 20th century, but it has struggled to maintain its original identity as the city of the future. Brasila was not always the capital of Brazil. The dream of moving Brazil's capital into the interior of the country started in 1789 with Joaquim José de Silva Xavier. Definitely butchered that pronunciation. Better known as the Tiradentes, or the teeth puller. He was a dentist, an activist, and a revolutionary. And he was the first to imagine moving Brazil's capital away from Rio de Janeiro and away from the coastline into a more secluded inland location, shielded by the Amazon. Nothing really happened with this idea for a while. It resurfaced a century later during Brazil's independence from Portugal. Politician José Bonifácio argued that Rio, with its long beaches, was dangerously exposed to marine attacks from French pirates. In 1892, Congress approved the concept and even sent out a set of scientists to the Central Highlands to experiment and to find a place. Astronomers, engineers, military personnel, doctors and botanists searched for the perfect site. But still, it was many decades until construction began. It wasn't until the presidency of Juscelino Kubitschek from 1951 to 1961 that the project gained momentum. Kubitschek wanted to make Brazil grow 50 years in 5. His vision included reducing Rio's vulnerabilities, populating the country's sparsely populated interior, and modernising Brazil through highways, energy infrastructure and industrial expansion. This also mirrored a wider 20th century trend towards having planned capitals such as Washington DC and Canberra, which were cities designed away from coastlines with monumental layouts, axial roads and symbolic architecture. In 1956, a contest was launched to design Brasila's master plan. The winner was the Lucio Costa with its architect Oscar Niemeyer as a close collaborator. Niemeyer was already celebrated for designing Brazil's pavilion at the 1939 New York World Fair and was deeply inspired by Le Corbusier and ideals of modernism. Costa's Plano Piloto, or pilot plan, shaped the city like a flying bird, which was a symbol of progress in an era that was obsessed with air travel. In the wings would house the bureaucrats, whereas the body of the bird would become home to monumental buildings, residential superblocks, and central green spaces. And this was paired with Niemeyer's futuristic architecture, reflecting a new Brazil with white curves against the skylines, bold silhouettes, and sweeping structures. According to Dr. Lehman, we must remember nowhere else was modernist architecture so enthusiastically embraced and adopted as a national style as in Brazil in the 1940s and 1950s. Key landmarks included the Cathedral of Brasila, which contained 16 soaring concrete columns, like hands reaching into the sky, filled with coloured light from stained glass windows. The Palácio do Planalto, which was the presidential palace, which has a glass facade and thin columns and a grand ceremonial ramp. And the National Congress Building, which has 2 twin towers with an iconic dome and saucer forms on the top, which is a symbol of modernist ambition. And the Ministry of Justice Building, which is distinguished by its water curtain and big monumental structure. Constructing the city was a grueling task, and it wasn't helped by the lack of infrastructure being tucked so far into the Amazon. The closest airport was Annapolis, which was 100 kilometers away with poor unpaved highways. But despite all of this, the city was built in record timing in just under 3 years. Despite its utopian promise, many critics argue that Brasila never fully achieved its modernist ideals. In some ways, it was a disappointment, says Brian Carter, who is a professor of architecture at the University of Buffalo. The plan relates much more to classicism or Baroque, with isolated monuments to the government, rather than the egalitarian principles of modernism. Kobe Karp, who is a Miami-based architect, adds that the ambition to guarantee a good quality of life for all of its residents has not fully come into fruition. The city lacks the typical street life of traditional Brazilian cities. Most people commute in for work and then leave at night. The pilot plan era was never truly lived in. Today, Brasila is the fourth largest city in Brazil, home to 2.5 million residents, yet fewer than 10% of the people actually live in the pilot plan itself. The majority reside in sprawling satellite towns, many of which resemble favelas, which is outside of Costa's original vision. Many critics debate whether it's a city at all. The problem with Brasila, says Ricky Burdett, a professor of urban studies at LSE, it's not really a city. It doesn't have messy streets, people living above shops, or offices nearby. It's more like a government office campus. People run away on Thursday evenings to Sao Paulo to have fun. In some ways, ironically, Brasila succeeded too well. It was planned for only around 500,000 people, but has a population of 2.5 million, housing over 5 times the number of residents originally expected. The apartment superblocks designed by Niemeyer to house the rich and the poor alongside each other are now almost exclusively owned by the very wealthy. The poor have been pushed out to satellite towns, which is eroding this utopian ideal and the principles that the city was originally designed and built upon. As Burdett notes, if you step outside of Brasila, you will find completely normal plazas and streets with kids playing, food stalls, and late night life. In contrast, the monumental core of the city remains sterile. So that's it for this little look at Brasila. I hope you enjoyed this episode today, and if you'd like to give us a like, subscribe for more because I bring out new episodes every Tuesday.